Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Would like to call the August 15, 2022 meeting of your Board of Commissioners to order. We will start with an invocation that'll be delivered by Pastor Gary Clark. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and that'll be led by Miss Addison Ferris. So, Pastor Clark, if you would come down, and everyone, if you would please rise.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you, Lord, for allowing us once again, God, to wake up this morning, God, and just experience the beauty of your creation, God, and experience you in your fullness. God, you've allowed us to come to this meeting today, God, to pray over this room and these men that are in it, God. And we just ask, Lord, as they begin to make decisions what affect our county and the people in our county, God, that your hand and your guidance be upon them, God, and let them be receptive to that. God, let the decisions be your decisions. God, for the folks in attendance tonight, God, we just ask, Lord, that you put a hedge of protection around them. God, allow them safe travels back home. And God, let this meeting continue on in a safe and civil manner. Father, we just ask, Lord, that you touch all those that are here. We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You for helping us out with the invocation and the pledge tonight. Before we move any further along on our agenda, we do have a recognition tonight. Commissioners, if you would join me in front of the podium here, and we will call down Miss Addison Ferris again. She is heavily involved with 4-H, and I will hand it over to Commissioner Mark Richardson for a moment.
Turn that heat right there.
Well, it gives me a very great pleasure tonight to introduce one of the younger citizens of Rockingham County. She is also a member of the 4-H Club. She's also a FFA member. She shows livestock and represents our county this way, but in the previous week, she went to the Association of County Commissioners for the state of North Carolina, where the 4-H had her participating, representing us in their youth program. And I want to commend Addison for taking the initiative to be part of these two outstanding organizations that are heavily supported in Rockingham County, both the FFA and the 4-H, but also representing us so well. And I don't know how at such a tender age, 14, she has developed so much poise, but let me assure you and any other citizen listening to this, I hope we have a bunch of folks so well represented. We'll put you on the spot a little bit and ask you how much this experience did for you personally.
This experience was probably one of the best that I've had in 4-H. I've been in 4-H since 2015, and this was probably one of the most educated ones that I've been to. I would love to go back in future years, but we did this thing called Real Colors, and it really showed me how, like, just looking and watching people, you can see, like, how similar and how many differences they have compared to you. And I learned that being a county commissioner is very hard. It takes a lot of skill, and I commend y'all for doing that. I don't think I could ever be one, but I really love the opportunity and want to thank y'all for the opportunity. So.
Well, you're very welcome for the opportunity. What she's talking about, the tough bit, is they put them through a budget exercise, and I think it's pretty tough, too. I'm glad we have some good help over there with the county manager. Anyhow, I present Addison Ferris to you, one of your co-citizens that has done great, and I recommend that we give her some applause. And unless you want to take a picture, Mr. Ferris, we're going to let you go sit. You stay where you are. You're good. Remember, you're going to do great things.
So certainly congratulations to Ms. Ferris. At the age of 14, to have the courage to stand up in front of a crowd takes quite a bit of courage. So thank you, Ms. Addison. Next is the approval of tonight's agenda. Gentlemen, you've had the agenda for about a week now. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Powell.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, items on the consent agenda tend to be non-controversial in nature. If you have any questions about matters on the consent agenda, please reach out to our county manager, and either he or staff would be glad to answer any questions and forward any information to you. With that being said, do we have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hall.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Powell. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. And next is the public comment portion of our meeting. No one has signed up for the public comment portion. So we'll move on to the public hearings. And the first public hearing, we'll call Marzi down, is case number 2022-15. And this is Tiger Tech.
This is rezoning case 2022-15 for Tiger Tech. It's a request for a conditional zoning amendment from their confusingly heavy industrial conditional district to heavy industrial conditional district. What we're trying to do is add uses to their table. They currently have the single sole use of their own business, industrial equipment maintenance and repair is the single use there. And what they're trying to do is expand their options of that property. It is, for just a quick overview, in the past, what the county used to do basically would become someone would come up for a conditional zoning district and they would tailor that just single use. And we found that that's offered complications in the past. So when they came to us to add uses, we took this opportunity to allow them to bring this to you to hopefully broaden categories of uses for land when we do conditional districts so that they don't have to keep coming back every time someone wants to change something on the property. So that being said, this is located at 2741 North Carolina Highway 135. It is a conditional zoning. The planning board in July did recommend approval on a 3-2 vote with Matt Cardwell and Cindy Hayworth dissenting. You can see it is located outside of Eden on the way to Stoneville. It's a more zoomed out map, but it's that entire section right there that's listed as heavy industrial right there at that corner, and has been since 2008. There are some water features in the general vicinity. And in our land use plan, it is an O2/G1. It kind of crosses the line there. It is located mostly in that O2 rural land use class, according to our land use plan. O2 Land Use Policy 4 encourages reuse of existing commercial structures that have been unused or vacant when applicable. However, also the economic development goals also let us focus on our existing and future industrial sites and support those. And I'll entertain any questions at this time. In your packet, you will find a list of the proposed uses. My printout shows that it's very difficult to read the scratched out uses. I don't know about y'all's, but most of the more intensive uses were removed, and some of the more general uses that wouldn't support in the heavy industrial were removed as well.
Does anybody have any questions of Marzi before either the presentation or opening it up for public hearing? No questions? Okay. And as far as the public hearing, only one person signed up. It is the applicant. So we will go ahead and call the applicant down, Mr. Banks Klutz.
First of all, thank you for having me here. And I just was going to speak if I needed to speak, but basically the group that I represent.
Let me stop you for just a second, just to make sure we're on the same page. You can do a presentation, and then we open the public hearing up if you want to handle it that way. That's the way we're set up. So
I'm good with whatever.
Okay, well, go ahead, and then we'll open the public hearing.
No, well, I mean, just basically to say that we had been working with your team here to try to do something else. We've got about 10.5 acres there. We do motor repair. We've got about 4 or 5 acres on the side of our main building. It's about 24,000 square feet of shop space. But we just want to do something else with the land, maybe bring in some more income to us, and also in the form of tax base for the county. So we're looking at doing what we'd like to do is to do some self-storage units there.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. With that, gentlemen, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Mr. Klutz was the only one that signed up for the public hearing. So the public hearing is now open, and no one else signed up. I don't believe you've got anything you want to add during the public hearing, so we'll close the public hearing. And then, gentlemen, do we have any questions, or do we have a motion? Yes, sir. Commissioner Richardson.
Well, I have a comment that I wish you would take back to Tiger Tech. Very early on, Tiger Tech was very highly supportive of training for our young people with occupational courses of study. And you're not presently part of Rockatop. I hope you sponsor some apprentices in the future. But I want to recognize Tiger Tech at this point for being a good citizen and supporting those initiatives now 5-6 years ago. So thank you much.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. Any questions, or do we have a motion?
I move approval, Mr. Chair, of case 2022-16, the zoning amendment with the 15, is it? Yeah. It is 15. With conditions and modifications.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Richardson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Travis. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next is case 2022-16, which is Terramore Development. Yes, sir, Marzi.
Thank you. This is a zoning request for a zoning map amendment, a rezoning from residential protected to neighborhood commercial. This is a non-conditional straight rezoning. It's located in the Williamsburg Township. The site address of the structure on the property is 3756 NC Highway 87. The planning board did vote 4-1 to recommend approval at their July meeting, with Cindy Hayworth as the dissenting vote. As you can see, it's just outside the city of Reedsville's jurisdiction, on the corner of Freeway Drive and Barnes, or NC 87 there. And a little bit more zoomed out, you'll see that it's heavily inundated with residential agricultural, some residential protected, some O&I, just barely. There's some heavy industrial, light industrial, all in the mix in the general vicinity. It is in one of our nodes, commercial sector nodes, that does encourage the development of neighborhood-level commercial growth. It is in the G1 land class, and land use plan, the land class is characterized by low-density residential development and commercial uses located at the targeted crossroads. This is one of those. Areas located in the G1 transect are generally rural, but are located near strategic intersections where neighborhood commercial could be appropriate. And again, economic goal 2.2 encourages new and expanding businesses, including small businesses. And if I'll take any questions if you need.
Anyone have any questions at this point in time for Marcy? Okay. Thank you, Marcy. We will let the applicant do their presentation. I believe it's a 15-minute time limit on the presentation itself before we open up the public hearing part. Yes, sir, Mr. Michael Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name and board, my name is Mike Fox. I'm an attorney here tonight representing the applicant, Tara Moore. My offices are at 400 Belmead Street, Suite 800 in Greensboro. Your staff has been great to work with as usual, and they did a nice overview of the location and the presentation. I have with me tonight Daniel Almason and Joe Strickland from Terramore. Daniel will come up and talk to you a little bit about the project, and also Justin Church, who's a licensed engineer who can talk to you about any site plan questions you have. We do feel like this is an appropriate location for this use. As your staff indicated, the land use plan calls for this type of use at these particular intersections, and the planning board did approve this 4-1 at their most recent meeting. And Daniel will talk a little bit more about this, but we have worked with the neighbors immediately surrounding it to talk about buffers and things like that, and we want to be a good neighbor, and so we're committed to doing that, and we can talk you through the site plan in terms of what we plan on doing buffer-wise, both in accordance with your ordinance, but even beyond that. So with that, I'll ask Daniel Almason to come up.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Almason. Our office is at 241 Clumac Road in Salisbury. Pleasure to be before you tonight and go over this project. So this is a proposed Dollar General store. A little different than some of the Dollar Generals that you've seen in the past. This one is about 1,500 square feet larger. It's called a DG Fresh concept. It gives us an opportunity to give a little bit more of a grocery store feel that you don't see in some of the traditional stores. This is a new concept the Dollar General is rolling out. It provides, everyone's probably been to an Aldi's before. It's a little bit more of that experience to where that you have some fresh fruits, vegetables, expanded coolers. And so it allows us to service the community better. And in this location, we've got good distance from the other stores. Again, we work within about a 2-mile radius. We don't generate a lot of traffic. The whole point is for them to be able to stop in the store on their trips to and from work, school, church. And so the whole point is that we agreed with the county's assessment that this is a commercial node, that it would service the immediate community. This store would probably be about a $1.3 million investment in the community. The annual tax sales, probably around 1.2 in taxable sales. About 7 to 9 full and part-time employees. And so the one nice thing is that we do use a lot of the local vendors in order to service the property, in order to bring in those fresh goods, the baked goods. And so it's a good complement to the neighborhood, especially a busy intersection like this. I know we've got a limited time, and I value your time. And so with that, I'll give it back to Mike. And actually, before I go, maybe there's some questions that you might have of me before I step down. No? Thank you.
This time.
Thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask Justin Church, who's our engineer, to come up and talk a little bit about the site plan and layout in case you have any questions about that.
Good evening. My name is Justin Church. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. Our office is at 1520 Meadowview Drive in Wilkesboro. And won't take a lot of your time. Just wanted to let you know that we have, as we always do, spend a good deal of time talking with your staff and reviewing ordinance requirements for placing this particular use on this piece of property. Also have spent time with DOT talking about our access, good input from them there. They're very comfortable with how we're planning to access North Carolina Highway 87. We've gone to the efforts and enlisted a licensed soil scientist to do some evaluation for us. We feel very confident that we're not going to have any septic issues. And so beyond that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have about the particular site layout.
Questions of Mr. Church at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got one? Commissioner Powell's got.
I'd like to ask you some questions.
Okay.
So I know that you just made mention that you talked to the neighbors. I know Mr. Mike Austin's here tonight, and he lives behind the store, and I believe that you've made some agreements with him on buffers.
We have. Mr. Austin had expressed interest in us retaining as many of the existing large trees as possible that buffers his property there, and we're committed to do that. We feel fairly sure. We're about halfway through our design process right here. We don't have fully complete construction documents right now, but at this point, I feel fairly comfortable that we're going to be able to eliminate any removal of trees even within that 50-foot setback that borders his property. So I think, and we talked about that outside some too, and I think that we've been able to offer something that satisfies him.
One other question. I'm from this area, so I know these people. Mr. Ernest Lynn sitting in the back, I believe his property borders your proposed store on the south side. And Mr. Lynn's a very, very good neighbor, and I've assured him that you're a very good corporate partner. But he's concerned about a border on his side. Has there been any? I realize this isn't not a conditional rezoning.
Right.
So, but
no, we've had informal. Mr. Fox had informal conversations with Mr. Lynn as well, and so we. By ordinance, we're required to have a 15-foot landscape buffer there anyway, and Dollar General's protocol is that we would install a 6-foot opaque privacy fence in addition to that. So I think he will have a very sufficient buffer there.
Okay, so there'll be a 15-foot vegetation buffer along with the fence. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Correct. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And we also, that's the end of our formal presentation, but we also will be willing, if there are citizens who come up and have comments in the public comments that raise questions that you'd like us to answer, we'll be happy to do that as well. And as indicated, we want to be good neighbors, and so we're committed to working with the neighbors, even after this process is done, about making sure that there's good buffering, there's no light pollution from the site, it's something that they view as a positive to the community.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we will open the public hearing phase of this application. Before we call anyone down, if you would read the rules involving the public comments, please.
Yes, sir. All those desiring to speak during the public hearing will sign up in the sign-up sheet located at the rear entrance of the Commissioner's chambers. The chairperson or designee will read aloud the specific ordinance title, zoning issue, or other hearing matter before being considered. For zoning and land development matters, the Director of Community Development or designee will in general present the facts of the public hearing. For other matters that require a public hearing, the department head or designee related to the matter will in general present the facts of the public hearing. The applicant or designee will be allotted up to 15 minutes to present their proposal. At the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, the public will have the opportunity to speak regarding the proposal. The public who signed up to speak will have 3 minutes to speak, or can yield his or her time, or can be yielded time from another individual. However, one individual will have no more than 6 minutes collectively. There is a 30-minute time limit for public comments. For each speaker shall clearly state his or her name and physical address when he or she approaches the podium. Once the public has had the opportunity to voice either in favor or against a proposal, the applicant may be allotted up to 7 minutes to provide a rebuttal. Following the public hearing of an ordinance or discussion by public on an ordinance, zoning issue, or public issue, the Board of Commissioners shall be afforded an opportunity to speak and voice his or her views on the subject matter. At the conclusion of this debate, the question shall be called, and no further debate or statement shall be in order, and action will be taken regarding the public hearing. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. So first is Miss Ann Shelton Boone. If you would come down, please.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Ann Shelton Boone. I live at 360 Lindsay Road, which is about a half a mile from 3756 NC 87. I am against the rezoning, and let me explain why. In the late 1950s, my parents bought this house at 3756 NC 87. Yes, it was my home place. I lived there all of my life until I married. And my parents lived there until they died in 2006 and 2012. Sometime after they bought the house, they were forced to close their store, a little country store that Mama ran while Daddy worked a permanent job at the ASCS office measuring tobacco. Because the new 87 would come down and bypass that 87, which is now Holiday Loop Road. And so, excuse me, they bought the front yard. The state bought the front yard. So Daddy sold his yard twice for right-of-way, for progress, for the existing now intersection that is there. Not only that, they wanted to buy more land that he had in a rental zone, that he rented houses, for cell phone tower access. That did not come to be. Then we came back out here for ETJ, which was to end at the bridge that crosses 29. Later, they wanted to change the existing intersection there at 3756 to include an island, which would give the right-of-way traffic open road. My parents' driveway was right at the end of that merging right-hand lane. I worried all the time that they would get killed. Most people don't use those 6 lanes of traffic that merge into a 2-lane in front of Mom and Daddy's driveway as a merging lane. They use it as a drag strip to see who can get around in front of the other car at first. Now I feel like Dollar General wants to totally destroy the house. My daughter and her husband live in that house now, and we don't agree about this, but I love my daughter, and I love her husband, and I want what's best for her. But I'm asking you, please, how does progress begin and persecution of one family end? It has to be a stop somewhere that we have to continually sacrifice what my dad and mom worked hard for.
Ms. Boone,
There's no place like home.
Yes, ma'am. That's your 3 minutes. And next is Joe Boone, who I believe is, okay. Mr. Boone, do you have something to add, or did you want to yield your time to Ms. Boone?
I have something to add.
Okay. Come down, Mr. Joe Boone, then.
I thank you, gentlemen, for this opportunity. I didn't know that I was going to follow my wife, of course. My name is Joe Boone, and she's always said where we lived. And I just wanted you to know that I retired from the state of North Carolina with 35 years service. I worked as a project engineer. This road, this project was mine. I know everything about it like I do the back of my hand. Problems, the good things, the bad things. And I got to know, well, I knew most of the people in the community anyway. They knew me. They had lots of questions. That was fine. It was my job. I answered the best I could. And remained friends out of that. However, I did have a challenge in this job that I'd never had before. My wife just mentioned it, Russell Shelton. He was my dad-in-law. Of course, I was very concerned with his questions, as I was everybody else out there, and his neighbor. They had reasons that I saw to have lots of concerns. You learn a lot after a few years doing the same thing over and over, and you learn people, and you learn what's important. And everybody has a different way of approaching what affects them or what they're fearful of. But down to earth, we all are fearful of the same thing when we're on the highway, and that is that it be safe as it can be for us to pass through. That was these people's concern mostly, their neighbors, of the safety part. I have a whole lot I could say in a very short time, my experience, but Russell Shelton was a fine man to work with. He had every reason to be concerned with the DOT. That was not ever a problem between he and I, or the family. Instead, he had great concern for everybody, whether they knew you or not. And there's at least one here that I know, maybe two, that can confirm that. One of his main concerns was right there, as my wife already mentioned, right in front of his house, the 2 lanes that merged to one. I knew that was not a good situation when we was constructing it. What the plans were, the circumstances pretty much had to be that way. I knew nothing I could do any different. I couldn't authorize anything different. Well, what was so dangerous about it? If you've ever been through there any time of day, just about, you can see that traveler number 2 wants to get ahead of traveler number 1.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Boone. Next signed up is Mr. Justin Church. Do you have anything to add during? Okay. And then Daniel Almazan, nothing to add. Michael Fox, anything at this point to add? Okay. Ernest Lynn.
Thank you for letting me address you. My name is Ernest Lynn. I live at 3730 Highway 87. I've been here 53 years. My property adjoins the proposed property to be rezoned. I'm concerned about a lot of things. 1, my privacy. 2, the safety of it. As I said, I've been here 53 years. I've seen a lot of accidents there. And over the years, of course, the traffic has just done nothing but increase. And along with the traffic and with the expanding of 87 and Freeway Drive, when it rains, a lot of rain, there's a lot of runoff. A lot of that water now comes at the back of my property, and I'm concerned about that. I don't think that Dollar General's certainly enhanced neighborhoods at all. In fact, unfortunately, I think they give off the impression of a economically challenged neighborhood. And when you start getting so many in the county, people begin to wonder what's going on in the county. I agree with Mr. and Mrs. Boone. It's Ann's home she grew up in. I'd like to request that, you consider these things and hopefully find a reason not to approve it. Now, within 5 or 10 minutes drive of that location, there are $6 stores, either Dollar General or Family Dollar. So I don't think it's something that's going to be a great convenience to the neighborhood. People travel back and forth going to work. They don't necessarily stop in them, in my opinion, just for the convenience of it. If they've got to go to the grocery store or convenience store, then they don't wait till they go to work. So anyway, that's how I feel, and appreciate your time.
Thank you. That is everyone that has signed up for speaking during the public hearing. So with that, we will close the public hearing. And gentlemen, well, before we move forward, Mr. Fox, do you have any rebuttal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, I'd just like briefly to have Mr. Church, who's been the one dealing with the access issue, to talk about the safety issue.
Yeah, we've, anytime we do one of these stores, the first thing we do is talk to DOT and just make sure that they're going to approve the access that we're proposing. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they do with some remedial action on our part as far as road improvements that would be, our burden. And they did not see any reason to do that. They had no safety concerns with the access that we were proposing and did not place any burden on us for additional road improvements. So at least from their point of view, there's no concern with the access.
Okay. All right. Yes, we do have a question.
Yeah, while you're up here, to Mr. Lynn's concern about water runoff problem, can you address that?
Yeah, so it looks to me like, based on the preliminary drainage design that we've been working on, the drainage will move north, and then we're going to retain some of that. There's no ordinance requirement for us to do stormwater control, but we're going to anyway. So we will have some retention on site, and I'm not seeing anything that would add drainage to the DOT right-of-way ditch, which I assume is what his concern would be.
Okay. Commissioner Powell?
So the access that you're proposing, is that going to be one off of the Freeway Drive extension and 87, or can you tell? Do you have that drawn yet?
We're only asking for one access off of 87.
Gotcha. Okay.
No question. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions of anyone, or do we have a motion at this point? Yes, sir, Commissioner Travis.
I make a motion to approve case 2022-16 with analysis and statements.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Travis, second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. That concludes the public hearings. Next on the agenda is some consideration of a lease. I believe that's Ronnie Tate.
Good evening, gentlemen. I've got one item for your consideration tonight, and it's a proposed change to the community kitchen lease. Currently, it's being leased by Blissful Pallet Events and Catering, companies owned by Jarrett Nykamp. Here's overhead showing the approximate area that Mr. Nykamp's leasing right now. And the proposed new lease he's not asking for a change to the lease space as shown in this overhead. What he is proposing is for the lease to extend to August of 2026 and an additional $800 a year in rent payments from $1,200 to $2,000 per year. One of the concerns I've heard is about the BLET proposed driving pad at the back of that property. And if you look at your map there, you can see that outlined in green. And the orange line there is the current driveway in place that goes to the back of the property. It's partially gravelled, and once it gets past sort of the old Scout Lodge, it turns into a logging road to get back to that property. I have spoken with the folks at the community college about proposing for them to install a new driveway to access that site if they do decide to move forward with it. That is the line that I'm showing there in red. It's about 300 feet shorter than the one that's in place now, but it will probably cost some additional funds since it has not been cleared and has nothing in place. I think that's all I have. Unless you have questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Well, and when you say additional funds for the driving pad, that conversation's been had with RCC, and they're aware of that, and they're
Yes,
good
sir.
with that?
Yes. I made them, when they first looked at that property and we had staff discussions, I made them aware that Mr. Niekamp had his area there that he was leasing, and that there is a road there, but I think they would be better served if they had their own entrance going in. It's a straighter shot. It's the current entry has got some S-curves in it. It would have to be widened if they decide to use it. It's too narrow for two-way traffic as it is.
And the extended lease still has the provision that we can take the property back over for our emergency shelter at any time, correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. It still remains as a proposed emergency shelter if we need it.
Okay, and places all maintenance and I believe the HVAC unit maintenance on Mr. Niekamp.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just got a comment.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Travis.
I went out there and looked at it. Mr. Niekamp has really cleaned it up out there real good. It looks a whole lot better than what it used to be.
He's done quite a few improvements, yes, and it's one building or area we don't have to maintain. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I also want to mention that I believe this was put out for public bid, so anybody could have
Yes.
come forward and
We did an RFP for it back before we leased it to Mr. Niekamp, and he was the only one that responded at the time to the RFP.
any other questions or a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the lease.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Powell, second by Commissioner Travis. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Any further items?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Metzler? Okay. Commissioner comments, Commissioner Travis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say congratulations to Addison Ferris. I think that's a wonderful start for a 14-year-old. That's a great achievement that she's doing, so she's really looking for a bright future there. On another note, the Youth Outdoor Hunting and Gun Safety Day is scheduled for October 8th at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Reedsville Training Center on Rocky Ford Road. So please, if you have a child or a niece, a nephew or something, bring them out to this fun day to learn how to shoot, learn how to shoot a bow, learn how to fish, learn how to put a proper tree stand together. And on another note, Ruger, who has been sponsoring us since they've been here, donated an AR-15 to be donated to be drawn, so a lucky person will win it. Boneyard also donated a custom fit bow, so if you win that, it'll be custom fitted to you. There's going to be other door prizes, and of course, there's going to be T-shirts given out, hot dogs, drinks. So it's going to be a fun day. So mark your calendar for October 8th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
Yeah, I want to talk about something that we haven't discussed in this meeting, and I'll call attention to it, and that is the felonious assault of our law enforcement officers around the state and around the country, those that have been shot and killed. And I think it's time that we start standing up and bringing this conversation to the forefront. I believe 2 weeks ago we had 4 officers shot in Wayne County. We've had an officer shot in Caswell County in the last week or so. We've had an officer killed in Wake County just last week. And we've also had officers shot in this county. And so I hope that we can collectively as a county call attention to this blight on our society. I'm not sure when it got to be popular to take out your revenge on our law enforcement officers, but we need to make sure that that becomes unpopular, and we need to call attention to it because we appreciate what our law enforcement officers do. And I think that I could very accurately speak on behalf of this board. I know I can on myself that there will be no wokeness in our law enforcement. We won't be defunding the police. We will be defending the police here in Rockingham County. So every chance you get, call attention to that. I think we need to change the conversation in this country about our law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to call attention. It's already the 15th of August. And you know what that means. In a couple of weeks, we're going to start seeing school buses. You're going to start seeing kids on the side of the road. So I just want to caution people as they're driving to work, coming back home, watch out for these kids, watch out for school buses. Please, if you see those red lights, that means stop. I don't care if you're running late. Please stop. Kids' lives matter. And so we appreciate you taking the time to look out for these school kids as they're making their way back to school. And we want to say thank you to all the school staff for all they do. We appreciate you guys very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair. Thank you. Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to recognizing Addison Ferris and her accomplishments, I'd like to put out a big thank you to our sponsors and teachers that are involved in the 4-H programs and the FAA within this county. They are great contributions to the welfare and upbringing of our young people. I'd like to recognize that recently we had the very first graduation of a Rockatop cohort. And what this means is these young people graduated with with credentials and a specific skill, as well as an associate degree and a job. And these young people were very diligent for 4 years, and they've set an example that we hope many more of our young citizens will follow. And congratulations to all those graduates and those folks entering the Rockatop Apprentice Program. I'd like to share with the Sheriff's Department in particular. I saw Colonel Farrar around here a few minutes ago, but while we were at the NCACC convention, several folks, including the county manager, commissioners, and staff members from Caswell County, wanted to express their gratitude to the Rockingham County Sheriff's Department for their assistance during a recent shooting incident last week, as was referenced by Mr. Powell. And I think it's great that we have that sort of cooperation between our departments out there. Speaking of the NCACC, that's the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. Two of us attended that program, that conference last week, and we think it's money well spent for our travel to go down there. In particular note, there was some training involving the opioid problem, and I think Commissioner Hall and I both learned a lot that we're going to be sharing with our county manager, and he was part of this training as well. There was also an extensive, I call it symposium there in regard to workforce development, which is critical to our county as we propose to equip these numerous industries that are coming in with folks getting better jobs at better pay and being better trained. There were also youth leadership programs, and on top of all of that, I think the main benefit for our county from participating in this conference is the extensive networking, because we learned of programs and we learned about people that can assist us with particular issues and problems that may come up in the future. While I have the microphone, I'd like to recognize our Superintendent of Rockingham County Public Schools, Mr. Sean Stover. Thank you for being here. We also have the Rockingham County Chairman, of the Republican Party, Diane Parnell, here. And I'd like to mention Colonel Farrar was here. He's left it in your able hands, I guess. And we also have who I'm going to call Commissioner-elect there, Houston, Commissioner-elect Barrow here in attendance. So thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in and being here tonight. I also want to recognize one other person that is in attendance, Miss Olivia Leggett. She is a new fellows member that is working in our commissioner's office. So, Miss Leggett, we certainly look forward to getting to know you a little bit better, and thank you for being here in Rockingham County. So with that, that would be all of our business for tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Commissioner Powell.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?